Coming up on Network Africa, scores of migrants die off the coast of Libya as refugees continue to seek a better life in Europe. Africa's Governance Index report shows stalling progress, with Ivory Coast in the lead since 2011. The long-awaited list of Nigeria's ministerial cabinet is out. We will bring you their names in the course of the program. Hello and welcome to Network Africa. I am Adeshewa Josh. Finally, the call for better governance and accountability in Africa appears to be paying off as citizens continue to hold their leaders responsible and also play to the principles of democratic institutions. Researchers at the Ibrahim Index of African Governance say 33 out of Africa's 54 countries have indeed shown improvements in the way they are governed over the last 4 years. There's, however, a little disturbing caveat in that report that says the progress is stalling, an indication that more needs to be done. The index measures changes in development, human rights, security, and economic opportunity. Overall, Ivory Coast has shown the most improvement since 2011 as it moved away from the conflict that was sparked by a disputed election the year before. South Sudan, the world's newest country, has shown the greatest deterioration in governance, in part because of the civil war which began in December 2013. Among other countries, Ghana is ranked 7th on the index with a small decrease in its score for governance. Ethiopia comes as 31st with an increase in its score. And Nigeria came 39th, also with an increase. Now, the Ibrahim Index on African Governance combines over 100 variables from over 30 independent sources since 2007, making it one of the most detailed data collection of African governance. From the analysis gathered in 2015, Ivory Coast has shown Africa's greatest governance progress. And on the flip side, African countries which have declined in governance since 2001 till date is, you will see it on your screen right now, we have Mauritius, Cape Verde, Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Seychelles, Ghana, Tunisia, Senegal, and Lesotho. Let's talk about this more. Ibrahim Sanusi is the Deputy Head of Africa Governance Architecture at the African Union. He joins us now from New York. Welcome to Network Africa. Thank you so much for making our time to speak to us.
Thank you very much.
Well, the perspective of the Ibrahim report is quite encompassing, and the ratings have also been largely agreeable. What are your thoughts about this report?
I think basically the Ibrahim report provides a quantitative assessment of the progress made by member states of the African Union on their governance systems. I think it's also a very useful complementary effort to the various governance self-assessments that is being undertaken by various countries. I know various countries have their own self-assessment processes and the rest of it. It's also quite a useful one when compared, of course, to the African peer review mechanism, which allows voluntary accession by various member states to also be able to look critically at their governance trajectory and look at what are the critical factors that need to be considered in moving their government forward. Let me also add that I think that the nature of our political space also provides that with an institution no less than Ibrahim Foundation coming out with this report every year, it allows our government to also listen and also pay attention to some of the salient issues that are often driving the concerns that have been raised by the report this year. That's what I would say.
Well, the disturbing part of that report says is the fact that the progress over the past 5 years is stalled. And this is actually unrelated, if you look at it, to the myriad of crises rocking some parts of the continent. How best can this clog in the wheels of progress in Africa be removed? I
mean, I think removing the clogs would require a lot of implementation of the various norms and standards that various member states of the African Union have ascended to, and they have adopted themselves. And we have quite a number of them. We have the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. We have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We have the Charter on the Principles and Values of Public Service on the continent. What all these documents say is basically provides a minimum standard of what our governance systems should look like in our various countries. But while we have made very, very tremendous and very, which we should acknowledge, very useful progress as regards norm implementation, we have not done very well with norm creation, creating those standards. What we have not done is the implementation. We have not done very well, and you can see with the various countries that are in the bottom half of the index this year, these are likely most of the countries that have not even ratified some of these instruments. And I think that these are the questions that we citizens need to ask their various governments, that what are we doing in terms of implementing these various instruments. And this goes to even the governance assessment, and that was what I was saying about this report, that I think such reports provides us some kind of a report card to say, well, if you have not done A, this is what it would result to in terms of B. The various APRM countries, there are concerns about even the regression that we're beginning to see with countries not implementing the national plan of actions that have been generated from the APRM reports. And I think that until we implement these norms, we might not be able to address comprehensively issues around inequalities, issues around diversity management, issues around credible and fair elections, issues around improved service delivery, which are at the core of the stagnancy that is being reported by the Ibrahim report. Okay. I think that we need to begin to put a lot of pressure on member states to begin or to pay a lot more attention to norm implementation. It is not just enough to adopt some of these instruments, but it is extremely, extremely important that norms are implemented in member states, because at the end of the day, the AU is as strong and as effective as the sum total of the various member states that make it up.
Absolutely. Now, you do know that responsible governance, many have argued, is largely the responsibility of the citizen as it is the government. What happens then in countries across Africa where the right of the citizen is denied, including the right to free and fair elections? Now, I'm asking you as the head of African governance architecture, the AU.
No, I think this is actually a concerning issue, even for us at the African Union. And on the occasion of the International Day for Democracy on September 15, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, in her statement had spoken about the shrinking space for civil society, which of course by extension is the citizens in various countries to be able to engage the political process in their countries. I think one of the things that we need to look at also is that there has been some kind of knee-jerk reactions to the spreading issue of terrorism, which is of course an angle of the September 9/11 attacks in the United States. The hangover of that terrorist fight against terrorism is that there has been several kind of attempts to address the communication and the expression of such dissenting groups. And so in that, we've seen all kinds of knee-jerk laws and codes restricting civil society participation, restricting people or citizens being able to express their voices. But the fact still remains that most of the instruments which I talked about earlier guarantees the right of African citizens to be able to participate, whether it's in elections, whether it's in their freedom of information, whether it's in their own participation in their governance processes. This instrument speaks largely to providing an enabling environment for citizens to be able to engage the political system. And that is why I will also go back again to issue of norm implementation. Until we begin to implement these norms and government begin to sit around with citizens and have this stakeholder consultation on how best to address these issues, the knee-jerk reactions that we're seeing would not necessarily address the issues that we're trying to address, but rather create another form of concern for us, which I think is extremely a concern. But largely, I think that we've also seen progress. I mean, that's one thing I would like to say. Elections are increasingly becoming.
Let me quickly come in here, okay? Because there is a consensus that Africa should play a decisive role in making sure, especially in the area of implementation, that member countries respect whatever conclusions or whatever it is that promises, contributions each countries have decided to make. Is the AU overwhelmed with monitoring and implementation in Africa, so much so that sometimes we have to go out there and get someone to monitor what we're doing here?
No, I do not think that there is, this is about the AU being overwhelmed. I think, again, it's also about the various stakeholder group in the political space playing their role. I think oftentimes when we look at the AU, we look at it as some kind of a police institution which is responsible for flogging our countries when they do not do what they are supposed to do. I think it is largely about our institutions in the various countries. We have the judiciary, we have the legislature. I think our legislatures have a lot more role to play in terms of oversight, ensuring that various commitments that our countries have made, we strictly adhere to it. And I say this because we often overlook the role of the parliament in all of this. The African Union is supposed to be the last resort. Like you said, our role should basically be to monitor and set the agenda and ensure that member states have the required capacity to be able to deliver. But the implementation is actually the responsibility of the member states. And when we say member state, it's not just the executive, it is the parliament, it is the civil society, it is the judiciary, it is the media, it is the civil youth groups, young people, women groups. It is a collective responsibility. And I think it's not that the AU is overwhelmed. Like I said, there has been various, and there are still various instruments for governance assessment. If you look at the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, member states who are state parties to that charter are expected to report every 2 years on the level of implementation of that particular charter. Not all of the member states who have signed on to that charter have reported.
All right.
You know, and so we are also doing our own best to ensure that at least we get state parties to report.
On that note.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa. Mr. Ibrahim Sanusi is the Deputy Head of African Governance Architecture at the African Union. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa. Coming up after the short break, Ghana suspends 7 High Court judges over corruption accusations.